So you did mention gay soldiers, and you also quite famously fought for gay rights at the time when there was actually violent repercussions for this, and you also survived an attempted assault because you were armed with a handgun. So you literally proved this point that armed gays are harder to bash. So what do you think about? But there's still so many countries in Europe, such as Poland, Czech Republic, where gay marriage didn't happen. Do you think that the current approach for fighting for gay rights or those LGBT organizations, which are often very left-wing, is flawed in some fundamental way?
Unfortunately, some people have fallen prey to what the bigots have said. They said these are special rights. And people have fallen into the trap of accepting that kind of language. I think it's just equal rights. And that's the basis for the fundamental struggle. It's not for special rights, it's just equal rights for everyone. They're the same civil rights. That includes the right to live your own life, the right to love someone who also is a voluntary participant in this relationship. It's no one else's business. And if those two people want to make a marriage relationship, the church will decide what they want to do. Churches, mosques, and synagogues, that's their business. If they want to recognize or not, it's not for the state to dictate. But the state should have an equal role for everybody. If two people want to get married, that's between them. And the state can recognize it in a marriage contract or a marriage relationship, which governs property and children, all kinds of complex matters. And there should just be equality. But not that you're fighting for something special or something unique. So I think that focusing it in that way is more likely to win victories. And in addition, and I think this is very important, one of the biggest changes that transformed many countries in a short period of time was more people coming out to their family and friends. And it's a little harder to hate people when you realize, oh, that's my niece. My niece would like to marry her girlfriend. Or my uncle would like to marry his boyfriend. It's a little harder to be really hateful to them. Some people manage, obviously, but that really transformed a lot of societies and opened the way to say, well, why shouldn't they be able to get married? I remember in a debate on this in the United States, a very conservative figure was arguing, and he said, let me tell you what matters to me. I had a guy I worked with, he was a fireman, and one of his fellow firemen doing this tough job had a boyfriend. I said, people didn't know that. Well, when he was sick, the boyfriend was not allowed to visit because he wasn't family. He said he died without being able to see the most important person in his life. And he said, is that right? That doesn't sound right to me. That's a better way to argue for these things than to argue that there's some kind of radical attack on social structures. That's not the case. It's just about being fair and saying people should have the same rights.
And do you worry about the reversal on this policy in the West, in America, because there is some polling on gay acceptance, on gay marriage popularity, and there has been some fall in the numbers. It's not yet very significant, but do you think there's some trend to worry about here?
Yes, I think it's going to get worse, and I think that the MAGA movement is always looking for victims, people to identify as the enemy. And right now it's the M&Ms, the Mexicans and the Muslims. These are identified as enemy. And the horror of kidnapping people on the streets, people who look like foreigners. What does a foreigner look like? Right? But this is just a shocking development, and many people have said, oh, that's normalized, when they have been removing African Americans from positions of power and authority. So Trump just said, we're going to militarily occupy cities that all have black mayors. Interesting. There are cities that have white mayors with higher crime rates, but he's not talking about that. It's black mayors. So setting up this opposition that somehow black people are the enemy and brown people are the enemy. And I think there's no question that gay people are going to be on the list, regardless of their color. So I do think that there is a trend in this direction. I view the rise of this kind of right-wing hyper-nationalism as very dangerous for everybody. I think there needs to be a very strong pushback against this, because I do see this as a deep threat to everybody. And again, they start with a group that's easy to identify. And famous statement, they came from this group, but I was not a member, right? And then they came for me, and there was no one left to defend me. People should remember that. And when we stand by and let them target this other group based on gender identity, based on race, based on language, based on national origin, and so on, remember, you're on that list too.